I mean, would it be accurate to say that you're supportive of legal immigration, um, but we obviously need to shut down illegal immigration, and especially unvetted illegal
Yes,
immigration, because and that's not the same as saying that everyone who's an illegal immigrant is bad. In fact, um, I think most people who are illegal immigrants are actually good, but you can't tell the difference unless there's a solid vetting of who comes across the border. Does that accurately
100%.
represent your position?
I say it
Okay.
very simply. They have to come in legally. They have to be checked.
Yeah.
Because look, Kamala was the border czar. Now she's denying it. Everything that I do, she's
Yeah.
saying she was strong on the border. We're going to be strong. Well, she doesn't have to say it. She could close it up right now. They could do things right now. It's horrible. Uh, no tax on tips, and all of a sudden she's making a speech and there will be no tax on tips. I said that months ago. I believe it's over 20 million people came into our country,
Yeah.
many coming from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions, or a bigger version of that is
Yeah.
insane asylums, and many are terrorists. And I'll tell you what, they're coming not just from South America, they're coming from Africa, they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Asia, they're
Yeah.
coming from the Middle East, they're coming from countries that are uh, stupidly and horribly bombing Israel October 7th. They're coming from all over the world. And you know, you look at it's so sad October 7th because it should have never happened.
Yeah.
It's so sad
Sure.
when you look at Ukraine. It should have never happened. We have a
Yeah.
defective government. These are defective people, and they're not people that should be running it. But where you see it the best is the border, because you have millions of people coming in a month, and then she gets up and she tries to pretend like she's going to do something. She had 3.5 years. And by the way, they have another 5 months that they can do something, but they
Yeah.
won't do anything. It's all talk. She's
No.
incompetent and he's incompetent. And frankly, I think that she's more incompetent than he is. And that's saying something because he's not too good.
Yeah, absolutely. Secure elections, and so it's just essential to have a real border, or we can't function as a country, and our central services are being overwhelmed in a lot of cities, um, and as we were talking about earlier, I think having um, a legal immigration process that is smooth and efficient and done well. And speaking as someone who is a legal immigrant, like in my opinion, actually, I'd say like probably most of the illegal immigrants actually are actually good, hardworking people. That's my opinion. Um, but some are not, and you just have this sort of adverse selection process where, if somebody's bad things coming here sooner, because it's a piece of cake to go rob, houses in LA or New York, compared to other parts of the world. And in a lot of places in America, if you try to stop the person who's robbing you, you'll be arrested.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's insane.
It's right. I mean, what's happening with crime, and our police are so good, but they're not allowed to do their job. But I have to tell you, Elon, I
They're
hate
not.
to say because it's such a downer to say it. I hate to say it. I hate it. But uh, you have a lot of people that just shouldn't be. I think it's a much bigger number than you think. They're
I
allowing
think you're
again.
right.
They're
Yeah.
allowing people from their jails. And if you were running one of these countries where they're coming from, you would have had all of them. As an example, Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. They're taking their drug dealers. They're taking, frankly, their prisoners. They're emptying out their prisons. They're taking their criminals, their murderers, their rapists, and they're
Yeah.
delivering them into
But
the.
that's what Castro did.
Yeah,
That
well, he did on a much smaller scale.
yeah.
You know, it was a much smaller
Yeah.
scale. But this is a massive scale because this is being done worldwide. But here's what's happening: crime all over the world is down. And wait till you see the numbers that we have. You know, this is migrant crime. This is crime that's going to be.
Yeah.
And I saw it today in New York where somebody was knifed with raped the girlfriend of a man that stood there watching in New York in one of the shelters, and started
Sure.
pulling out the knives, and bad things happen today. But this is happening every day. These are rough people. These are people that are in jail for
Yeah.
murder and all sorts of things, and they're releasing them into our country, and they're telling them, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you. So they don't want to come back. But these are rough people.
Yeah.
These are criminals that make our criminals look like nice people. had nothing to do with the problem.
Yeah.
Is but she was
Well,
the border czar, and the people
yeah, yeah.
can't allow them to get away with their disinformation campaign. Now she's trying to say that she wasn't. She wasn't really involved, and the whole thing is horrible. She was totally in charge. She could have shut the border down without him. He didn't know what he was doing anyway.
I actually want to report something about the Elon Musk Donald Trump conversation, which you were just listening to, which is actually is not part of the conversation, yet might be even more important than their conversation. And that is what the European Union has announced, that by having Donald Trump on, they jeopardize X. He might be fined and not even be allowed to operate in Europe. What I'm telling you sounds incredible. It should be incredible, shouldn't it? And yet, here it is. European tech regulator threatens to punish Elon Musk and X for airing Trump interview. The European Commission, this is, by the way, this explains in a nutshell why Britain left the European Union. Brexit. See, the left is big supporter of the European Union because wherever power is consolidated in the hands of the elite, that is what the left wants. The more power Brussels has to control all European countries, or all European countries that are a member of the EU, the better it is. Those of us who believe in the American ideal of limited government regard the experiment of the EU as an anti-liberty, which it is. Of course it is. It's an anti-liberty experiment. So the European Commission is threatening ex-owner Elon Musk with possible legal consequences for his plans to air an uncensored interview with former President Donald Trump, and calling for Musk to balance the importance of free expression with the need to suppress, quote, harmful, unquote, content. Having Donald Trump on is deemed by the European Union as harmful content. It's a left-wing organization. Wherever there is extreme power, you tend to have the left. Give me an example of right-wing extreme power. You might say Russia. That's a possibility, although it's a strange thing to say, given that Putin is a former KGB officer, that is the Soviet secret police, and believes, is on record as passionately believing, that the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century was the collapse of the Soviet Union. So it's odd to call Putin right-wing. But in any event, where there is enormous power in a government, it is overwhelmingly likely to be left-wing. The left is a big danger to humanity. Not liberals. Liberals are a danger because they vote for the left. They will have to answer to God to that, but a lot of them are nice people. I can't say that about the left. He has to, this is harmful content according to the EU. European Commissioner for the Internal Market, Thierry Breton, one of the world's most aggressive tech regulators, this is National Review writing, warned Musk that his planned Monday night interview with Trump could violate the Digital Services Act, or DSA, if X does not limit the spread of certain forms of online speech connected to the interview. What does that mean even? If comments? This is what Breton said. This notably means ensuring, on one hand, this is how they live in the world of the lie. This is classic. Kamala Harris could have said this. This notably means ensuring, on one hand, that freedom of expression and of information, including media freedom and pluralism, are effectively protected. And on the other hand, that all proportionate and effective mitigation measures are put in place regarding the amplification of harmful content in connection with relevant events, including live streaming, which, if unaddressed, might increase the risk profile of X and generate detrimental effects on that civic discourse and public security. That might be the longest sentence I have ever read.
Yeah, it sounds like a Henry James.
It's a Henry James or some German philosopher. I believe in free speech, but on the other hand, as soon as there's another hand on free speech, it means you don't believe in free speech. Wow, that was labored. I read French, and I'm not sure I could have read that in French. I'm not sure I could read it in English. Therefore, we are monitoring the potential risks in the EU associated with the dissemination of content that may incite violence, hate, and racism in conjunction with major political or societal events around the world, including debates and interviews in the context of elections. Hello? Your projected interview with one of the two candidates for President of the United States may lead to dire consequences in the European Union. Of course they don't believe in free speech. The left has never once been in power and allowed free speech. It suppresses free speech whenever possible. Liberals allow free speech, conservatives allow free speech, leftists do not. This is a very jarring thing to come out of the EU. I'll bet there's no New York Times editorial on this condemning it. I know you're making a face. Yeah, that was a statement of the obvious. You can't even have Trump on your Twitter type service. It's a detriment. Well, what are you going to do, my friends? I'll tell you what you got to do. We have to support all of the movements in Europe that want to break away from Brussels control, from the EU. That's what we have to do. That's what they have to do. That's why the Geert Wilders in Netherlands is so important. The Prime Minister of Italy is so important. It's really a battle for liberty. It's as simple as that. But the human being doesn't value liberty in general. The human being values being taken care of. For the full episode of The Dennis Prager Show, go to pragertopia.com, sign up, and become a full member.